Test, test. That's it right there. Hey guys, how's it going? So my name's Claus, and if you looked at your schedule for today, the title of the talk was Claus Moberg. So I'm gonna just talk about myself for the next hour. I hope you guys are ready. No, I'm actually really bad at responding to emails, and I never sent my title, which is probably the reason for that, but I apologize. My talk does have a title. It's called Scaling Roblox, Lessons Learned from Building the World's Largest UGC Gaming Platform. Who here, prior to today, has heard of Roblox? Wow, that's actually more than I was expecting. Who has played Roblox? Other than the people who work for Roblox. Two, okay, and who has actually built something in Roblox? One person, awesome. I like to ask those questions because it's actually surprising. If this room was full of 12-year-olds, the answer to the first question would be unanimous yes. The second question would be at least probably 80 to 90% have been on the platform, and the answer to the third question might still be somewhere around 10%, but it's certainly more than, competitive with pretty much any other ecosystem where kids can actually express their creative freedom in a digital fashion. So it's always interesting to see where the industry comes down. Start off with a little bit about myself after all the talk is titled Claus Moberg, so I felt like this slide was necessary. I'm a senior engineering director at Roblox. I oversee what's called the applications group. Basically, my teams maintain the in-game experience, the in-game developer resources, and all of our app shells, so our mobile apps, our Xbox application shell, all that kind of stuff. Before Roblox, I was the founder and CEO of a company called Snowshoe. Started right here in Madison, Wisconsin. Ironically, not started in the gaming industry, but ended up in the gaming industry. We ended up inventing a technology that enabled toys to life applications for mobile devices. Did a lot of work with Disney and Activision. Company's still going strong. We still have one employee here in Madison, but I moved on to Roblox about a year and 2 months ago. And I am a UW-Madison bachelor and have a master's degree and have like a lot of wasted time on a PhD that I dropped out of to start that company. So go Badgers. Okay, so Roblox. It sounds like a lot of you guys have heard of it, but it's one of my big goals for the talk today is to have everyone come away with a deeper understanding of what exactly the platform is, why it's interesting, and why it's different from pretty much anything else out there in the gaming ecosystem. Roblox is the world's largest user-generated platform for play. We have about 65 million monthly active users. That says 50 plus. This slide is like 3 months old. That gives you an idea of how fast we're growing. There's 29 million plus games that have been published on the platform and 1.7 million individual people who have published a game that has been played by at least one other person that isn't them. A pretty healthy system of, pretty healthy destination for people to go, whether they're kids, anyone, to play interactive, multiplayer, 3D online experiences. And we are obsessed with building this powerful platform. This has actually been the vision for the company since we were founded in 2006. Is a place where you can build anything that you can come up with your imagination, and where you can share that experience with your friends online. I actually don't do as good a job of explaining this vision as our founder, Dave. So if the audio is gonna work, I'm just gonna play a video that's gonna let him talk for a little bit. Cross our fingers that this actually works.
Hi, this is Dave, the founder of Roblox. Our story begins in 1989 with this simple block. We programmed a 2D simulated physics lab called Interactive Physics, which would later go on to influence our approach to building the groundwork for Roblox. Students around the world used interactive physics to see how two cars would crash or to build destructible houses. It was astonishing to see what these kids and teens were designing and we wanted to replicate that capability on a much grander scale. So with my co-founder Eric, we began building the core components that would become the basis for the Imagination platform. Roblox soon began to take on a life of its own. We worked continuously to get the platform closer to our ultimate vision. We soon allowed our players to begin outfitting their avatars with shirts, body colors, faces, hair, head shapes, and more. This is a huge hit for our players, to say the least. The more features we added, the more we saw our concurrent player numbers increase. Since 2006, we've expanded Roblox onto new devices and hardware ranging from smartphones to VR. We have hundreds of millions of people playing, imagining, and building together, and it's growing faster every day. So remember, the next time you imagine something, no matter how simply you start, there is a universe waiting to be created. Roblox, powering imagination.
So that's basically what we do. We want to provide a platform that lets creators come and basically build anything they can imagine, from a race car simulation to a first-person shooter to a place where they can pretend to own and operate a pizza shop with their friends. And yes, those are 3 of our most popular titles. There's a couple interesting things that I think are worth talking about in how we've built the platform and why it's been successful. One is the sort of way we onboard players into this ecosystem, because what we have is a marketplace. It's a two-sided business model. Roblox doesn't work if we don't have players, and it also doesn't work if we don't have content. We don't build any of the content on our platform. There's 29 million games that somebody else has built. How do we get people, without using any of the common game industry engines, without with a totally custom Lua API that people aren't familiar with until they've come to our platform, how do we actually get them to build stuff and incentivize them to use it? I want to start by sort of talking through the evolution of a Roblox user, because it helps answer that question. Kids as young as 5, and certainly in the 6 to 10 age demographic, will be at school one day, and there's that one kid who met somebody else at summer camp or was talking to their cousin at Thanksgiving dinner, and they're like, have you played Roblox? And everyone's like, no. They're like, well, it's this cool free game we can all play. We can all play online together. And they'll go home that night and they'll make a date to meet at 6:45 p.m. after dinner, and they'll all download Roblox to whatever device it is that they want to play on, whether it's an iPhone, an iPad, PC, Xbox, and they will join with their friends. Play games with friends is by far, is the perfect synopsis for our core engagement loop on for our player experience. As they build, they develop that social network on our platform. They actually make official friends on our platform. We have a social graph very similar to what you've seen on Facebook or Snapchat or anywhere else where you can add and remove friends, follow people, etc. They will start playing more and more, and eventually they will see that there's a little tab in the top of the website that says create, develop. It's about to say create. Shh, that's a secret. They'll download what's called Roblox Studio, which is our development environment. They will start placing bricks for their own map, and they'll start playing around with the capabilities of the platform. They've probably still never written a line of code, but they can press publish, and whatever they build in that editor can immediately be playable on Xbox, on PC. Their friends can join them. All of that infrastructure is provided free of charge. They think that's cool. They go, oh, wow, wouldn't it be cool if instead of just placing this brick, this brick actually did something when I touched it. It flew across the screen, or it killed somebody as a kill block. So they'll start writing their first scripts. And this generally happens in sort of the 15 to 18 range, maybe a little bit younger. As they start scripting more and more, they build more and more complex games. They learn how to build sort of classic mechanics for the free-to-play genre, how to acquire users. all of a sudden maybe they have 5,000, 10,000 people playing their game. They start earning Robux, our digital currency. They actually start selling stuff on the platform. And all of a sudden they have, by the time they're maybe 17 or 18 years old, we have developers that are earning over $1 million a year building games on our platform. And it all starts with a 6-year-old who hears about Roblox in the classroom from somebody else. I mentioned that we're at about 65 million monthly active users. We don't pay to acquire any of them. Those monthly player counts are 100% word of mouth. Our customer acquisition cost is 0, which is pretty incredible and pretty unheard of in the gaming industry. So what's driving that overall, the overall platform? What's driving the success of it? There's 4 key elements. The first, I mentioned we have a social network. This is actually really unique. There are a lot of social networks out there. There's a lot of movies called social networks. Everyone knows what they are. Everyone probably has Facebook or Twitter on their phone. Our social network is one of the only ones out there that's fully COPPA compliant, which means we can legally have people under 13 make friends on our platform. And that means that whereas Facebook explicitly says it is against their terms of service for somebody who's 12 to make Facebook friends or have an account, they can do that on Roblox. We spend a ton of time and energy making sure that our platform is kid safe. It's a super high priority for us, but at the same time, it allows us to have this social network for kids that really doesn't exist anywhere else. We've seen a couple other companies try to compete with this. Lego launched and recently shuttered a social network for kids in this age demographic, but nothing that's actually gained traction the way that Roblox has. A big part of that traction is also the customizable avatar. You saw it in the video. This is probably, along with our social network, the single greatest driver of user retention that we have. Once somebody can take their avatar and customize it to their likeness or to whatever it is that they can imagine themselves being, whether that's a dragon, a knight, a mage, anything that they can imagine, they feel a greater sense of ownership on the platform, and our data shows that they are significantly more likely to come back than people who don't participate in the avatar customization process. It's also critically important that we are a user-generated platform where most of the user-generated experiences that you're interacting in still use that platform default avatar. So I go to Roblox, in the mobile app or on the website, I customize my avatar, and then I join my friend's game, but I still look like the avatar that I customized. I still get to inherit all of that functionality. Again, it's incredibly important for retention. It's incredibly important for giving users a sense of ownership on the platform. 3D. So part of the initial motivation, if you talk to our CEO, Dave, for building Roblox was to invent the Matrix or the metaverse, this parallel digital space where you can be anything you want to be, and it's like living, but in a computer or something. 3D is critically important to this. A lot of social networks have gaming, quote unquote, deployed. You have Facebook games, you have games on Snapchat in some way, but most of it is 2D, most of it is HTML based, most of it frankly sucks. Ours is a fully immersive 3D gaming experience that in its best applications rivals AAA 3D gaming environments. And that gives a sense of authenticity and excitement and immersion that no other social network coupled gaming platform can approach. And finally, in the cloud. This is in my opinion, term that's way overused, but what I mean by that here is when there's an experience published on Roblox, that same experience by and large is playable on every platform we support. So if I download Studio, I build a game, I press publish, one server can serve that experience to a mobile device, to an Xbox, to VR, to PC, to Mac, tablets, etc. And all of the players on those various devices are on a shared server playing with each other. The engine's been built from the ground up to do this, and the result is far more players in each game, especially for games really far down our popularity. If there's 20 people playing on across all of our platforms, you can join a server with 20 people in it. That's a much more immersive, much more social, much more engaging experience than if all of the iPhone players were just playing with the iPhone players, all of the PC players were just playing with the PC players, and there's 2 or 3 people in each one of those servers. The only platform that we support that's not true for yet is Xbox. But I'm super excited to share that we're actually going to be supporting cross-platform play with Xbox and all of our other platforms in the next couple weeks. Very exciting. As far as we know, we will be the first Xbox gaming platform that lets you do cross-play with mobile devices. There's a couple things out there where you can cross-play with PC and Mac, but nothing where you can cross-play with people on phones. So it's really exciting and really breaking, cutting-edge stuff. So I've sort of covered this already, but I want to reiterate it. Roblox is a two-sided platform with a sort of a different experience for each of our 2 customers. On the one hand, we have players, and essentially we're YouTube for games. Just as YouTube is the place you can go to experience, I guess, billions at this point of different video experiences, we are where you can go to experience millions of different gaming experiences. All of them are built not by us, but by somebody else who uses our platform. And it's also a social media platform where gaming is the primary engagement mechanism. At Roblox, we think about the competing social networks that are out there: Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. Facebook really came into being with photo as its primary engagement mechanism, 2D photos, 2D imagery. When I joined Facebook, the cool thing was to go to a party and post a picture of everyone at the party and tag all of them. And I think that's still actually probably their primary engagement mechanism at this point. Snapchat came along and made a very conscious effort to make video their primary engagement mechanism because they felt it was more engaging, more in-depth, more intimate than what you could do with just photos and what Facebook is really promoting. We view ourselves as a social 3D co-experience first social network, where the primary mode of engagement is 3D multiplayer online games. And if you follow that arc, we think that positions Roblox in a really interesting place relative to the other social networks that are out there. And when you couple that with the fact that we get a younger age demographic than anybody else that's out there because we're COPPA compliant, we think it gives us an interesting opportunity moving forward. So the other side of our business model is the creators. And here, instead of something simple like YouTube for games, we are incredibly broad. The goal is for us to provide literally every single thing a game developer needs to build, develop, test, host, publish, and monetize a 3D multiplayer gaming experience, and to provide all of that for free. And to go beyond that and actually enable the people who are building those experiences for free to earn money. And I'll get more to that later, but when you think about that, I mean, that basically means that on this side of the equation, we're trying to compete with Sublime Text, Unity, AWS, PayPal, and gaming ad network. And amazingly, we actually have a relatively feature-complete feature set on that side of the house. So I mentioned this already, but Roblox's core engagement loop is play games with friends. I am astounded. I have a 5-year-old son at home. I go to parks and we go to the restaurants and whatever, and I'm astounded by how often I will see 2 kids sitting next to each other in the real world on their phones playing Roblox with each other online. So they'll both have their phone out, they'll be sitting next to each other, they'll be voice chatting, like actually talking to each other. like no intermediary, but like actually talking to each other. But they'll be playing Roblox together at the same time. And I see this all the time. And it really is true. We've invested a ton of effort and we're building significantly more features in the coming year to make it super easy for people to build out their social network and then to get in game with those people so that you and I, if we are friends, are playing in the same server. If we're chatting, we can easily swipe into a gaming experience together. Everything we need to enable that experience is there. And And like I said, that's what makes this platform sticky and engaging. This is sort of a collage of some of our top experiences. Several of these games are, if they were standalone games, would be competitive, with the top 20 or the top 50 games on Steam right now. And it's all driven, again, by the fact that we have this social network and kids can play great gaming experiences, but they can do it with their friends. Jailbreak, our top game. I checked this at about 7 p.m. Central Time last night, had 44,138 concurrent players, and would have been number 7 on Steam if it was hosted there at around 7 p.m. last night. So sticky, engaging, huge user numbers. What's crazy about this, so it was beating out Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't actually know how big the studio is for Grand Theft Auto 5, but I'm guessing it's at least 75 people, probably more than that. Jailbreak is 2 guys under 20. And they're building a game that has higher concurrent player counts than GTA 5. Just one other sort of brag point. In terms of top properties for kids, according to ComScore, we are the number 3 web property for kids in the 2 to 12-year-old age demographic, and we're number 6 for tweens, age 13 to 17. So again, user counts are there, and it's those user counts that are now allowing us to drive developer acquisition. Now that there are these massive numbers of players responding to that core engagement loop, playing with their friends, all of a sudden our monthly active user count goes up. This is actually kind of an outdated graph, but it was the last thing I could find that was publicly available that had real numbers on it. So it ends in April of 2017, but it was when we were at about 33 million monthly active users. We're now at about 65 million. So we've about doubled since then, just less than doubled. And then if we look at the weekly average concurrent player count, no numbers, sorry, but you can see the trend over the last 3 years is pretty exponential growth. These player counts and this response in players to that core engagement loop is what is now allowing us to attract an incredible depth of content to the platform and to really reward developers that are starting to build experiences on Roblox. So like I said, there's about 1.7 million creators who have built a place that somebody else has played. That's a pretty steep cliff. There's probably less than 1,000 developers that have built a place that more than 500 people have played. And the top 50 games probably see over 99% of all engagement on the platform. I'm guessing that, I don't know the stats from YouTube, but I'm guessing that a power curve like that is actually pretty normal in user-generated content. But it still means that there's a huge opportunity if you can figure out how to climb that power curve and build games that suit this audience. There's a lot of eyeballs that you can attract, and there's a lot of money that you can earn. These are our developers. This is actually a video taken at our annual developer conference, which we host in San Jose every year. We actually started to host them 3 times a year in different places around the world. So we have a London one, and I think this year we're gonna have one in China somewhere. But you can see most of them can't grow facial hair. Most of these guys, as I mentioned when I went through that core player loop, most of these guys started playing on Roblox 7 to 9 years ago as 6-year-olds or 10-year-olds or 5-year-olds. They wrote their first line of code on the platform, and they built their first game on the platform, and they've now built games that, again, compete with GTA 5 for concurrent player count at any given time. Several of the people in this video are now millionaires, thanks to Roblox, which is super cool. One of the guys earlier in the video just bought a Tesla based on his earnings from Roblox, and another person in this video is paying his MIT tuition based on his earnings from the platform. So our goal is to be this one-stop shop for game developers. We provide their IDE. We provide a custom game engine built from the ground up to empower 3D multiplayer online co-experiences, built with replication between the server and the client from the ground up to enable the type of gaming experiences. We are their host. Your game can have 100,000 concurrent players in it, and you don't pay anything for server hosting. There's nowhere else in the game industry where you're going to get that deal. We are your distributor. We provide this sort of captive player audience. So player acquisition happens on our platform. You can buy ads for your game on our platform. You buy those ads with our currency as well. But it is possible to have like straight up customer acquisition costs. And we are your monetization platform. So you don't have to worry about PayPal. You don't have to worry about the app stores. We take care of all that for you. Your players spend our currency in your game, and then you can convert the Roblox currency, Robux, that you earn into cash. And again, there's really no other deal like this in the gaming industry. I'll get a little bit more into the economics in a minute, but there is nowhere else where you can build this type of game and your only cost is your time. And it ends up being a really good financial deal for even small studios. I've alluded to this several times, but Roblox is available on almost every major gaming platform that's out there: PC, Mac, mobile, tablet, Xbox. I really wish I could add a couple other consoles to this list, and unfortunately I can't yet, but not through any fault of our own. And the types of environments that players can build are starting to approach anything that you can build in Unreal or in Unity. They can be fully immersive, beautiful, wonderful lighting, dynamic, and really elegant experiences that do not have necessarily the blocky aesthetic that maybe we were known for 2 or 3 years ago. So we've been talking about the economy. Roblox has a currency. It's called Robux. We use that R with the money sign symbol to represent it. The way it works is Roblox players buy Robux, or more accurately, their parents' credit cards buy Robux. And they can spend that on the platform in 2 ways. They can customize their avatar with stuff from our inventory, buy hats, shirts, animation packages, different head shapes, all that kind of stuff. That's about 30% of our revenue. Or they can spend it in-game on things that developers sell in their game. So if you build a first-person shooter, you can sell skins for your guns that make your guns look cooler. Our players will buy those. You can actually sell better guns. You can sell, there's definitely games that have sort of a pay-to-win mechanic built into them. But it's up to the developer. Whatever it is that they want to sell in their game, our players purchase with Robux, and the developers accrue Robux on their account. They can withdraw up to $140,000 in US currency from that account. They can basically withdraw up to 30% of the Robux that they've earned at any given time. So basically what that means is the revenue split between us and our developers is 70-30. We keep 70%, they keep 30%. But when you think about it, considering there are no other development costs associated with Roblox, unless you want to do something like custom analytics or HTTP calls to your own servers or something like that, that actually ends up being a pretty good deal. If your only cost is, in that coming out of 30%, is your time, and the rest of it is profit, in the game industry, there are a lot of studios that would kill to have those economics. So all of that is a really long-winded way of saying that at Roblox, we think we are creating a new category of company. We relate to a bunch of categories that are already out there. In some ways, we're a media company. If you stop by our booth, we have a line of toys on the table. We're not a toy company. In some ways, we're a media company, but we don't actually make any of the IP that's on our platform. There is no Roblox canonical character. We are a social platform, but we're a social platform built around a fundamentally different engagement mechanism than anything else that's out there and targeted at an age group that nobody else can reach. And we're certainly a gaming platform, but nobody at Roblox has building a game as their day job. And that means we sit in between all of these things. The numbers on this slide are market cap. It's just designed to sort of give you a sense of the overall opportunity that we think we're chasing. But it's a big opportunity, and we think there's a lot we can do in this space. So I was going to say that the title for this talk was something about the learnings from scaling the world's largest multiplayer, but that's wrong because the title of this talk was just Claus Moberg. But I do want to go through just a sort of a quick rundown of a couple additional learnings that I haven't touched on yet. And this is like super hokey. Excuse me, I know it's like a lot of Silicon Valley talk and shit like that. But one thing that's sort of core to our culture and has helped us survive the last 10 years as a company and get to the place where we are today is doing things the right way. Roblox is allergic to hacks. Tim's looking at me like he doesn't know what I'm talking about. In my experience, relative to the startup industry especially, we will always choose the 6-month, 1-year-long, multi-engineer development project to the 2-week Band-Aid every single time. And the result of that is that the core technology gets better and better over time, and the platform itself is significantly more stable. It also leads into the second bullet point, which is that as far as I can tell, we're the only place in the game industry that does not have crunch time. Nobody at the company that I know of works more than like 45 or 50 hours a week. And I don't think you can do the first bullet point without the second bullet point. If you're constantly under the gun and trying to reach, especially content publishing deadlines, getting your game out by Christmas or whatever it is, you have to do those hacks. But because we're a platform and we don't build any of the content, our developers on our platform definitely have content publishing deadlines, but we don't. And so we have the luxury of taking a step back, saying, what is the right way to solve this problem, and what resources do we need to solve it the right way, and doing it in a way that's sustainable and lets us have a company where we have employees that work for us for 7 years or 8 years or 9 years and don't burn out. And I think that's been critical to our success thus far. And then finally, continuing on a similar theme, we've done some irrationally big things. My previous company was venture funded, and I spent a lot of time going to investors and pitching them on our idea and how big we were going to be and all the crazy stuff that we were going to do. And everyone here has seen Silicon Valley on HBO, right? Like, it's exactly like that. You're sitting in a room, you're going through your slide deck, you're talking about how you're going to be worth $1 billion. And I oftentimes at Roblox think, what would it have been like to go to a venture capitalist and say, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a 2-sided marketplace. On the one hand, we're going to be the #1 kids gaming destination. On the other hand, we're going to be a competitor of Sublime Text, Unreal, AWS, PayPal, Amazon App Store, iOS App Store, and an ad network. And we're going to do all of that with inside one company, and give me your money. And I know that a VC would have just laughed. Like, there's just no way. They would say it would take at least 10 years and at least $500 million investment to even get started. And the truth is, it has taken 10 years. But somehow it took a lot less than that in investment, and the company's amazingly been profitable, sometimes more so than others, but the company's been basically able to bootstrap to the point where it is today. And it's the result of not shying away from the big things that were core to that original vision that Dave talked about in the video earlier in the presentation. So those are the lessons that I've learned being at Roblox for about 1 year and 2 months. I am and respect your community. The last one. I'm super happy to take questions or have a discussion around other stuff that may have led to where we are today or other lessons that we've learned, but that's all I got. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we have so the company size right now is about 250 people in engineering, product, and G&A, and 550 people in customer service and moderation. It's a huge part of what we do. In order to be COPA compliant, all of our text chat has to be filtered both with AI and human reporting mechanisms to make sure that players aren't divulging PII if they're under 13. We have to hand curate every single asset that's uploaded on the developer side of the house to make sure it doesn't look like genitalia. We have to make sure that nobody's uploading assets that have curse words in them or anything else that we don't consider child safe. It's a huge part of what we do. We've actually built a lot of proprietary technology to enable that. On the other hand, doing that, it's another one of those big things that I think a lot of other companies have been like, oh, it's just too hard. Like Lego's social network for under 13-year-olds only allowed emoji chat so that they wouldn't have to filter stuff. And it felt unauthentic to the players. Whereas at Roblox, they can have a chat. They can't divulge numbers because it could be part of a address. But for the most part, you can actually have a real conversation with somebody as a 12-year-old playing on our game, and the result is a much stickier, much more engaging platform. The other side of that is like more malicious, like actual hackers. We have a bug bounty program. We have a InfoSec team that works extremely hard to both detect and address any vulnerabilities that exist in our platform. I am very much of the opinion that it is impossible to build a 100% secure solution. And so it's always a balance of how secure can you make it before you know something's broken, and then how quick can you fix it once something is broken. Of course, the challenge for us is that when something breaks, it's not just impacting our game, but it's impacting our developers' game. So, it's entirely possible to have an incident that, somebody isn't necessarily attacking Roblox, but they're attacking one of the games on Roblox. And then we have not only our own responsibility to our players, but we have a responsibility to that developer who may be running a company that is 100% dependent on our platform to address that as quickly as possible. It's something we take very seriously. It's a unique challenge that I think we face based on the fact that we are this UGC gaming platform. And we do allow like scripting, right? Like the scripts that we're running are written by people who don't work for our company. But on the other hand, it's worth doing because the rewards are a really authentic, really engaging ecosystem of experiences that our players can't find anywhere else. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned that your YouTube account is almost doubled in engagement. What do you attribute to that?
So the growth curve that's a continuation of goes back about 2 years. And I personally, and from talking to others, so I wasn't at the company when it started. Prior to us reaching this point where we've been growing at 100 or 200% year over year, the company had always sort of grown at like 25%. Maybe we'd have an up down a quarter or a down quarter, but like it had basically been 8 years of like 25% growth. And then we had a year where we sort of made as a company theme growth, and we organized a task force within the company that was explicitly dedicated to building growth features. They did a ton of work on the social network. making it easier to find friends, making it easier to play with friends, making it easier to invite friends, all of that kind of stuff. And that's really what triggered the start of that growth curve. And I think, frankly, put us on the trajectory that the last year has been a continuation of. It's just really fun to play games with your friends, whether those friends are people you know in real life from school, or whether those friends are people that you've met on our platform but have had shared co-experiences with and want to play with again. And it's something that we continue to build additional product and feature for, and is a main focus of my teams as well as several other teams within the company. Does that answer your question? I mean, it's kind of hard because like the growth curve started 2 years ago, and we've obviously made a lot of product changes in that time, but we've been growing at a pretty constant 200% year over year for that entire period. And so I think a lot of it traces back to like the platform finally becoming feature complete with this coupled social network and gaming experience sort of built into one. The one other thing I would point out is that 2 year ago time period is right around when our mobile games became playable. Prior to that, we had mobile apps launched, but we hadn't released our own. We were still on an open source game engine that was who had very poor support for a lot of the mobile graphics capabilities. We went through the extreme and irrational expense of building our own game engine, rendering engine from the ground up, that was designed from the ground up to be compatible with all mobile devices, iOS, Android, and all of the various drivers that each one of those individual handsets use. And about 2 years ago is when our mobile games became good and largely playable, and I think that also made a huge impact. Going back to the start of that growth curve, I think about 90% of our player base would have been on PC, and now it's about 50% PC, 50% mobile. And the vast majority of our growth is mobile.
So when moderating user-submitted content,
Yeah.
You mentioned that your primary focus is to keep things child-friendly. I would assume on the other side of that, people are uploading licensed characters,
Yep.
things that they're not supposed to. How much effort is put into taking down people's SpongeBob
Yep.
levels?
So one of the top 5 most popular games, and frankly one of the best games on our platform, is called Pokemon Brick Bronze. All of the assets in that game are owned by the Nintendo Corporation and not licensed. We have a very clear policy about this, which is anyone who owns a copyright for any asset on Roblox can file a DMCA takedown notice the same way you would for YouTube, and we will immediately address the issue. But and this is consistent with the DMCA legislation, it's incumbent on the copyright holder to file that notice. And so until somebody at the Pokemon company reaches out and says, hey, take that game down, we're under no obligation to do so. In that game in particular, we know for a fact that Nintendo knows about it and thinks it's cool fan art. Yay. But it's incumbent on them to reach out and file a notice. So we don't spend a lot of time moderating the assets that are uploaded for copyright infringement because it would be impossible. There is no like centralized database of all copyrighted materials, and even if there were, my guess is there's a lot of copyrights out there that aren't actually applied, and so it would be sort of irrational to apply it that way anyway. And so it's really just incumbent on the copyright holders, if they don't want stuff to be live on our site, to reach out. The other thing that's interesting about that, though, is oftentimes we've had people reach out about copyright infringement and ask us to take assets down, and once we explain what the platform is and who our players are and how the game works, they actually do a 180-degree turn, and they're like, oh, can we pay to promote this? Because it's great brand exposure. We have a big initiative, a big part of our business. It used to be bigger. It's actually smaller relative to what we earn from the developer-provided content and the avatar customization stuff. But movie studios and game companies every month are paying us to produce, to assemble teams of external developers to produce games that use their IP as a way of just promoting their game. We actually had a video game pay us to make a Roblox video game to promote their video game, which was one of the weirdest, most meta things I've ever thought about. But like it's a sign of, anyone, we're the top #1 web property for kids, apart from Google and Yahoo. So if you want to get those eyeballs, it's a lot cheaper to get them on Roblox than anywhere else.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One comment on that. I'm surprised how popular Yahoo is. So you have a very interesting demographic, and especially like how young capture people
Yeah.
they kind of evolve and grow with you as a platform. Kind of curious on like, is there an end to that kind of progression as far as how long they stay with you?
Yes.
And is that just because that's how old the players are since they've been out, or is there kind of a natural end to that kind of age out of it?
Yeah.
If so, like, what do you see is there like a next thing?
So I would say right now, like, players churn out around 13. We see some players hang on past that, but I think a lot of that actually has to do with the content on the platform. By and large, the gaming content on the platform, because our core age demographic is that 9 to 13-year-old, it tends to be focused more on kids. It's a blocky aesthetic. Even our internal avatars, like it's a lot more difficult to build like an avatar that looks anthropogenically correct, or looks like something that like a teenager would want to play as opposed to a kid. So I think there's, long term, there's stuff we want to do to address that and to make sure that the content our developers can and are building on the platform is appropriate for a much wider age demographic. And I think that will be a large part of unlocking the, older age retention that we don't currently have. On the other hand, it's not a primary focus for us right now, because we feel like if we can actually develop a functional social network for kids in that 9 to 13 age demographic, and if all of my friends, like I still use Facebook because all of my friends are on Facebook. It's a lot less cool and the features aren't as good as Snapchat, potentially for my age demographic, or LinkedIn, or whatever age demographic I'm in, but it's where my social graph is. And if we can establish our user social graph early, then we can launch additional features for other age demographics later, but establishing that social graph in the first place is the sort of biggest win we can have in that battle. Does that make sense? At least I think that's our current theory. Yeah.
But I kind of find it funny, right? Bethesda tries to launch like paid mods and stuff, and they fail already. It's like the same exact profit splits once you take Valve into account, and they get thrashed horribly. But you guys are doing basically the same thing, but you figure out how to do it in a way that doesn't give angry mob people turning down your door.
So I can tell you what the secret was to that. When we first, we're a user-generated content platform, but 3 years ago, our developers couldn't sell assets in their games. They were just making their games for the joy of making a game. And then we said, oh, let's launch DevX, and we let them withdraw 15% of their profits. And then we went to 30%. And so our curve has gone the exact opposite way from Bethesda, which was like, you can theoretically sell a mod or publish a mod or something like that through your own website and actually charge people for it. Or if you can use our platform, we're going to take a big cut of that revenue. Like, they sort of came at it from the other direction. Whereas for us, most of our developers started building on the platform for the pure joy of building a 3D multiplayer online game that they could play with their friends. It turned into something that ended up having large player counts, and then all of a sudden we gave them a mechanism to monetize that. They're like, oh, sweet, free money. Lots of free money. And that trajectory has really helped us. Anything else? Awesome. Thanks, guys. If you have any questions, we have a booth. We have a bunch of swag. Come talk to us. We're hiring basically everywhere. We're trying to double the size of the company in the next year. So we have 250 headcount to fill. Stacy and Kristen are on our recruiting team. We'd love to talk to anyone who's interested. Yeah, thanks for listening.